Hey gang, I want to talk about the photo slider or image slider widget and some of the challenges that you guys may have with it. We're going to add it to a new page, and in some cases the page will break if the photo slider is the first and only thing on a page. So we'll see if we can recreate that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the widget in general. So let's go create a new page. Actually, what's that on this page? Well, let's start. Slider. There's my new page. I'm going to add the widget called the image slider. Drag it out to the page. And sometimes what will happen is if you go in here and immediately delete all of the photos, sometimes, not reliably, but sometimes it will just blow up your page as soon as you click save. And it's kind of tough to find a pattern of it, but it does happen quite a bit. If you add the photo slider to a page and then replace the photos of that slider immediately before there's anything else on the page, you have a good likelihood of breaking the whole page. If that happens, simply hit the back button and delete the photo slider and do it again. So it's not that big a deal, but it is super annoying when it happens. We're going to try it again and see if we can get this thing to break. As I said, it's not the most reliable thing in the world, but it's not always going to blow up on you, but it does happen quite a bit. So the proper way to do this would be to add your photo slider last on your page, or at least just so that it's not the first thing on your brand new page, and you can pretty much guarantee it's not going to happen. We're going to try to break it again. Take our photo slider, add it to the page, and if I immediately delete all the default photos and immediately add in some new photos, see if we can get it to break. It did not break. Okay. Well, sometimes it will. So as I said, ideally you just don't want your photo slider to be the first thing that you've added to your page. So if you've got other things on your page, a calendar or another text widget, or literally anything, add whatever else it is you need to add to your page first. Go add a new row, add all your other stuff, whatever it may be, or just add at least one thing before adding your photo slider, and you shouldn't have an issue. I'm going to try it one more time, and then we'll go poke around at it and see what we can make it do. See if I can break it. And of course it did not break because we're recording and you're all watching. So it's going to let me add new photos to it with no problem. Oh, there we go. Now we got a good break. And it's really because there's nothing else on this page. There's no rhyme or reason yet. The problem is still being researched, and hopefully we'll get to the crux of it soon. But in the event that you get an error and it breaks, you can no longer add anything else to this page. You can't do anything to it. The only thing you can do to resolve the problem is simply hit the back button. Now your page is all good again, and you can go back in and add more stuff to it. So ideally, we're going to add anything else to the page. That's fine, just add that. And then if I add my widget back in, sorry, I got a new mouse. And add the photo slider again. Now if I delete the photos, add in some new photos. Maybe it's because I'm on the same page. Not really sure. I haven't seen it happen twice. So we're going to hit the back button again. And of course this only happens because I'm actually recording it. So hit the back button, let's add some photos to it. And that time it's working. So again, if it does blow up on you, don't freak out, don't worry about it. Simply hit your back button before you do anything else. Add something to your page, and then you can add stuff to the widget. So now we've got our slider on the page. and now we can come in here and edit it. So if we click on it, we have some options. We can, of course, add photos. We can delete all the images at once, which does not help the breakage situation. I've tested it every way you can imagine. But we do have some design options with the photo slider. If you click on design, there are some different layouts. One of the layouts allows you to have a button and some text up there right in the middle of it. The downside to that, to me, is that it puts the information right in the middle of the photo. A lot of people don't like that. So the other option is to have the text below the photo, which actually is, I'd say 99% of them have that. So that's the preferred method for most schools. And then, of course, last is, if they're not going to have any text, just click the bottom one and leave it off totally, and there won't be any text at all there. If we turn it off, though, you won't get to see some of the other changes. So let's get I'm going to select the middle one, and we'll scroll down a little bit more. So we have the item style, and the item style is really the information that you see in this bar here, where it says write your own caption here. We can change the fonts of that to something like that. We can change of course, the size, bold or unbold, italics maybe, font color. Generally, the font color is going to be white, so we'll just leave it white. And we can change the style of the photo itself in the background. We can make it, set it to full width, which is the way I generally set mine. If you're going to set a width, the downside to that is you're setting the specific size of it to whatever size, as opposed to it being truly responsive. So I would recommend that you set full width, and then you can manage the height as needed. So again, I almost always set and would recommend that you set the width to full. You have the option of displaying the full image or not. Generally, it's going to be off, and the reason is, if you just, well, actually, this is a good example. If I have it turned on, that full photo is actually just a small rectangle in this case. And that other profile of that other lady, we'll go back to it, is just a little bitty square. So that doesn't look real good because it leaves a bunch of dead space around the frame. So instead, if we go back into it, go into Design, and turn that back off, it will automatically stretch the photo to the full width of your photo frame. So that's definitely the better way to lay out the photos. And we can adjust the placement of each photo by moving them up and down, and I'll show you how we do that. But we can align them as we see fit. There's also an overlay by default on all of the sliders. I don't know why. I don't like it. I always just turn it off, and it makes the photo brighter. If you wanted to have an overlay for whatever reason, maybe a red tone to go with your red site, you can do that, and you can even do shading and other things as well, but I would recommend just no overlay at all on it. Text overlay is this little bar that you see behind it. You might want to make that more of the color of the site, but when you change it, by default, it's going to have no opacity, meaning that it's not going to really show the picture behind it. It's just going to be a big bar right on top of your photo. So if we go down here, we have the opacity option, and we can make it more opaque so we can see through it, more or less, however you see fit. And then the final option is the arrows, and those are the arrows that you see on the side when you mouse over the photo slider. You can have them appear just when you hover over the photo, or always, so they don't ever go off. You can have thick or thin arrows, and you can also make the arrows as large as you want them to be. And you can change the arrow colors. So it's kind of cool. You can do a lot in terms of this styling and really make it whatever you want it to be. Last is the transition, and that's, I almost always leave it on the fade option just because that's the most common, but you can change whether it's going to fade, kind of bounce in or shake or wobble or whatever, as well as slide, which means it's going to slide horizontally as opposed to doing a fade in. Let's go back in and show you the other options here. So if I did a flash, it just goes whew, makes a cool little flash. This is an area where really you just come in and play with it, and you decide what looks best for your particular case, and totally up to you. So that is the photo slider. One more thing is that quite often we'll have the photo slider go full width across the page, and all of your sites actually have a little invisible border around them because your sites are by default 1200 pixels wide. That's actually determined in the design area. If you go to site layout, you'll see that the width is 1200 pixels. And so if you want your photo slider to go full width across the page, for one, we want to make sure that we've set in the design the full width under frame style. So we want to make sure that it is the full width. And two, we need to make the row also full width. So to do that, we click on row, click edit design of the row, because just like the widgets themselves, rows also have design options. In this case, we're going to make it full. It's an odd phrase, full bleed. I don't know why they call it that. I would generally call it full width, but full bleed row is what makes that slider now extend all the way across the page. The last thing to look at is your slider by default has some padding. It has some horizontal and vertical spacing around it, and that also creates a weird little gap there at the top, which looks kind of funky. You can grab it and drag it up if you want, try to get it exactly where you want it, or if you go back into the design mode, at the bottom of every widget is the spacing, and you can simply hit reset all spacing. That will set it all to 0, and that should have pulled it up, but it didn't. Normally that will fix it, but you can also of course drag it up like I just did. So that's your photo slider, folks. It's a very cool module. You'll find it on, or widget, and you'll find that it's on almost every school website that you work on, and so that's how you manage it. Again, if you break it, it's not your fault, not an issue. Simply hit the back button, delete it, re-add it, or make sure that it's not the first and only thing on a page before you delete the default photos. Add whatever it is you want to a page, just stick a piece of text in there, go and add your photo slider, and generally you'll be fine. Again, if it does break, just hit the back button and you're done, and you'll be okay. If you need more help with it, let us know. Thanks. Have a great day.